guys, welcome to the LTD Leadership Lean In, where our goal is to help you lead like never before in your hotel and in your home. I'm Sam, your VP of Sales and Culture.
And I'm Richard. And if you're new with us, we release a brand new teaching on the 1st and 15th of every single month. And so I'd love to invite you to subscribe. That way you can get those notifications sent directly to you.
And we know that a lot of you are taking the time to go over this content with your teams. And of course, we know that that is truly where the learning happens. That's where theory meets application. And so we want to encourage you all to make sure you download our leader resource guide so that that will help walk you through questions. It has show notes and everything you need to follow along.
Yeah, I want to thank you for those who are sharing it, no matter what method they're sharing it, whether it's through watching it with their team, inviting them to watch it on their own, sending it to them, sharing it. And then also, if you're taking the time to rate us, review us, give us feedback, we truly appreciate it.
Yeah.
And speaking of feedback, don't forget you can email us at ltdleanin@gmail.com. There you can ask us questions if there's something you want to hear about, offer suggestions for ways we can be better.
Yeah.
Feedback is a gift.
Yes.
And come and give us some helpful feedback. We want to hear from you.
Yes. All right, Richard, I have a confession to make.
Uh-oh.
I love Chipotle.
That's a light confession.
I know. But to be honest, this is kind of embarrassing. My first experience there was kind of scary, right? So it was very much like them, bowl or burrito. And I'm like, I don't know, bowl. And they're like, white rice, brown rice. And I'm like, I think white rice, right? And then they're like, chicken or steak. I'm like, chicken. Them, black beans, pinto beans. And I'm like, wait, what? No beans, right? And down the line of the ingredients we went. And, they kind of rushed me through this experience. And before I even had, an opportunity to realize like what my last decision was. And I was very exhausted by the end of the whole process. And it was weirdly stressful. I kind of feel the same when I go to Starbucks. I'm anxious, right? But of course, I'm an old pro now, so it's not so scary. But of course, when I see new people going through the line, I'm remembering the same level of anxiety that I felt the first time I went through a Chipotle line. And, I even have felt the need to prepare other people, like, this is what's going to happen. You need to be prepared with your answers. And so you kind of get people prepared for the experience because, it can be kind of, anxiety provoking, right? But ultimately, right, Chipotle employees, they deal with these same ingredients and these same questions over and over and over again. All throughout the day, it's the same questions for every customer. Their goal ultimately, right, is to get people through the line because there are more people coming. And that scenario really makes me think of how many times our hotels can feel like this to a newcomer, right? So, our hotel is commonplace to us, this whole check-in process, the whole process is commonplace for us, but for most of our guests, everything is new.
Yeah, exactly. Whether they've stayed at a hotel before, some of our guests have never stayed at a hotel before, and this is their first time, so they have no idea how anything works. But even our guests who are, the most elite tier, the titanium, the diamond, the whatever your brand has as its highest level, they are likely to have never stayed at your hotel.
Right.
And your hotel may do things differently and very likely does things differently than another one, from where the elevator is located, the hours of breakfast, checkout time, if you have a restaurant or if you don't, where's the nearest restaurant to you, who delivers, hundreds of things that make ours unique. But because it's not a unique experience for us, we've explained this tens of thousands of times, we often rush through that process. I think as simple as I often hear seasoned desk clerks or who've been in the industry for even a year or so, getting so annoyed with that whole credit card authorization, pending versus whatever. And it's like, I got to explain this 100 times every week. Very likely because that's the first time that guest has experienced that. And so it is a big deal to them. And there's a lack of trust. So even though we explain all this stuff tens of thousands of times, we have to remember it's most likely the first time that this person has ever heard that. And just imagine that if your experience at, I hate saying Chipotle because I always feel like I'm either over or under pronouncing it.
Yeah, I
But
don't
if
know.
your first experience there, what if that first greeting was welcome? Have you ever dined with us before? And then if you said no, then they could
Yeah.
say, well, let's walk you through the process. We're going to ask you some questions and you choose. Take your time. Would you like a bowl or were you more interested in a burrito? And we can discuss the benefits of both, right? And if they took that time with you, you were more focused on you're just able to make the decisions and the comfort than you were for speed being your goal.
Right. Yeah. So every one of those opportunities that you just referenced can be a moment of anxiety for a new guest, or like you said, any guest. And if we aren't careful, we can rush these guests through our hotel check-in process and leave them feeling stressed and process kind of like a customer at the end of that Chipotle line. So this, among other things, are some of the primary reasons why first impressions, or really any impression, matters. So, Richard, I'm going to ask you another question. I want you to finish this sentence.
Okay.
We are ladies and gentlemen.
Serving ladies and gentlemen.
Whoa, nailed it. Okay. Now, who said that?
That would be the Ritz Carlton dude.
The Ritz Carlton dude. I hopefully don't butcher his name, but you are correct. It is the Ritz Carlton dude.
All right.
And his name is actually Horst Schulze. And he is the co-founder and the former president of the Ritz Carlton group. And he basically, in his career, led that company to unprecedented multi-billion-dollar growth, really setting the business's vision and crafting that people-focused standard that made the Ritz-Carlton brand globally elite. And today in our Leadership Lean In, we're going to talk about the 3 universal wants that all guests have that he actually outlined in his book called Excellence Wins.
Oh, you know what? Speaking of his book, I see you have a book right here.
I do.
It's Excellent Wins. I assumed it was the right one.
Yeah.
And look, his tagline for this book, a no-nonsense guide to becoming the best in a world of compromise.
Ooh, that's a pretty compelling tagline, right?
I think so.
I think so. So in the book, he basically goes on to share the industry's changing and disruptive principles, right, that really produce that unparalleled success over the course of his career in hospitality. And we believe, Richard and I, we believe that these innovative, but really and truly they're foundational concepts and practices can catalyze our performance and your performance as a leader in this hospitality industry.
Yeah, I remember you were telling me about the 3 principles that were in this book that we'll talk about today, and that they are both versatile and practical for leaders of every age, no matter where they are in their career or what their actual focus is within this industry. And that obviously we don't need a powerful title or a line of direct reports, that we have everything we need if we use these insights right now and start making a meaningful impact.
Yeah. So why don't we go ahead? We'll jump right into the principles laid out by Schulze and discover some of these secrets to this uncommon success in our work as we unlock the power of excellence.
All right.
Do you like how I did that?
Yes, it's
The power of excellence.
very dramatic. So according to research outlined in his book, there are 3 things that our guests want. First, guests want the product to be defect-free. So they want everything to work. Second, guests want the product that they're receiving in a timely fashion. Give it to me quick, make sure it works. And then third, guests want people who deliver the product to be nice.
To be nice.
Yes. So in fact, the third desire, the want for these people who are delivering this product to be nice, is actually more important than the first 2 combined. Wow. And it can make up for any defects or timeliness issues if we give the proper niceness.
Yes. Awesome. Okay. So according to Ritz Carlton's research, one of the 3 universal guests wants, right, is that they want something with no defects. So as an example, let's say you're selling a bottle of water. They want that water to be absolutely pure. No little floaties swimming around in there. And they also want the bottle to be leak proof, and they want to know that they can trust this purchase 100%.
It's a lot about water.
Yeah, I love water.
Good metaphor. When we talk about defects, though, we're not just talking about physical defects. We're like, the door being sticky, the toilet being dirty, anything like that. We're also talking about process or system defects, the kind of things that lead the guest to say, his example was, I never got the receipt, or the suitcase was taking too long to get it, that it resulted in him not being able to get ready in time. And we see it very often in our industry. A guest requests a late checkout from the night shift before, right? And that doesn't get passed along to the morning shift. So even if it gets taken care of, ultimately, they have to then re-request it or explain that it was already approved.
Yeah.
We are running into models where we don't clean the rooms every day now, but every other day, or depending on the brand, different things. And those aren't always explained to the guests. So even though the process itself, as how often the room should be cleaned, or the room actually being cleaned, is flawless, the process being explained to the guest is not happening, and they miss that out. And so I'm gonna keep talking. So it's our jobs as hoteliers to make sure that we are creating an environment that associates want to share these defects with us, right?
Yeah.
So, whether you are an hourly associate or a supervisor or a manager, we want to make sure that not only are we presenting the defects up so that we can work through it, but we want to make sure that if we are in some sort of leader capacity, which we all are, that we are creating an environment where people want to share these defects. We want our guests to share with us, but we want our coworkers, colleagues, teammates to share them with us so that we can fix these issues and these defects, whether they're process or product related. And then, and if you can ultimately create a great culture of seeking ways to improve, then not only will your teammates seek out problems, bring them to you with joy, that they may even bring solutions along with these defects that they feel would make it. And so then it's, how do we get that culture, right? How do we build that culture into bringing that to us? And I guess that would be, incentivizing that, whether that is a direct compensation or
encouragement.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Encouraging, showing general gratitude when they're presenting what could be seen as problems or complaints, and showing that, hey, here's something we can be better at.
Yeah, I think it's easy to, especially when we see some of the same things over and over, like you said, like we were even talking about in the original example with Chipotle, when you start to see things over and over, you start to just overlook them, or you become almost numb to it or immune to it. And I think we have to stay vigilant and intentional about not allowing ourselves to get into that mode, and still addressing and still bringing up some of these areas of opportunity from a defect perspective, because we can't let off the gas. And while some things may feel outside of our control initially, so, what is it? The squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Yes.
Did I say that right? I have no idea.
That is the correct expression.
Anyway, sometimes we have to keep addressing things and keep bringing them up so that we can make some impact and get some things changed. And of course, when you're coming to the table with solutions, that's an even better option and a better opportunity to, help address some of these defects so we can fulfill that number one wish that our guests are really trying to seek out, which is a defect-free process and product. Okay.
I liked how you just used vigilance, and then also talking about the complacency that we got to keep going, because now I'm just imagining like Batman running around the hotel, just making sure there's nothing wrong here.
Perfect. That's exactly what I want associates to be doing. Okay, so moving on, the second universal want was timeliness. This is a big one for me, guys. So anyone who knows me knows the value that I place on time. And I really, I can't stand it when things start late or when things run longer than promised. And I guess I just believe that one of people's most valuable commodities is their time. And one of the kind of a big sign of disrespect in my eyes is when we waste people's time or when we don't value their time. And I feel like people, they don't want to stand around. They don't want to wait for anything, right? So let's say you're eating at a restaurant and that meal comes out absolutely perfect, no defects, right? But it took 45 minutes to be served. And, so I feel like in that situation, those guests of that restaurant, they're going to be unhappy regardless of how delicious that meal was. They're just not going to be pleased because of the timeliness issue, right? And if someone calls the front desk but they're put on hold for 10 minutes, it really doesn't matter how the associate spoke with them or how smart they were or how competent they were in resolving an issue. Because they had to wait for 10 minutes, they're already ticked off.
Yeah, and I think more examples from our industry would be the check-in process, right? We see that there's a line, right? So that we are providing this, we're going through the process of getting everything, but then we are in such a rush for the timeliness standpoint that then we make people wait and then really not even get that good of a product ultimately. So it is a balancing act of the timeliness. We want to push them through, get them done so that they're not waiting, but then ultimately take care of them. Or, going back to the check-in process, right? It's people expect to check in at that point, right?
Yeah.
And so if it is something where they want to check in and then they can't actually check in, right? They're trying to check in before check-in time, the room's not ready. Maybe there is something we can offer them to bide us time and them time if they're coming in with a bunch of bags. And for me, I don't want to carry my bags around anymore. We could offer to hold their bags for them.
Yeah. So like a real life example of this scenario, so not too long ago, I was traveling to Minneapolis. I had a conference that I was attending. I don't know about you, Richard, but when I travel, I like to be comfy. And so I chose not to dress for the conference. And I dressed, we'll call it an athleisure. Okay. So I was comfortable. But my assumption was I was going to get to the hotel. I was going to go into my room, have a few minutes to regroup, get changed, and then go down and go to the conference. And when I got to the hotel, it was around noon, so well before check-in. And shame on me for assuming I could just go ahead and check in before, but nonetheless, that was my assumption. And go to the front desk and go to try and check in. And they explained that, no rooms were available. And at that point, I was in a bit of a panic mode because I'm sitting here going, well, I can't come into this conference in sneakers and, a hoodie. So I had to think fast. And so at that point, I asked the associate, okay, well, I need to change. I have some, this conference that I'm attending. I need, somewhere to freshen up. And they were kind enough to, direct me to the public, to the restroom where I could at least quickly change. And, they had a full length mirror and those types of things. So, it was an adequate solution. But it was definitely one that I had to seek from them. They weren't necessarily intuitive enough to ask what I might need in that situation.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was thinking of in the example of more of a later early check-in, but in your example, it is early, and there are probably some clues that they could have had, right? I'm assuming that when you were checking in and your colleagues look like they're ready for a meeting and you're in your athleisure wear. That maybe one of these things doesn't belong. Maybe we need a solution here, that they could have asked probing questions. But even if they had no idea, maybe they could have just asked regardless of the fact of it being check-in on time or not, that you at least had a mild expectation of a chance of being able to check in. We are unable to check you in yet because we're still making sure your rooms are perfect for you. Is there anything we can do to make this wait more comfortable for you? And at least they've asked the questions to then figure out you need a change, or you need a place to sit, or you need a place to make a phone call, or you have to do a conference meeting, or whatever it is. They would have that information. And I think it's all over our hotel, right? Not just the check-in process, the breakfast process, right? Like if we're waiting for our guests to ask us if we have a comp breakfast at our hotel and they're kind of wandering around looking for something, and maybe they're not finding a gluten-free option
Sure.
or a non-meat protein or whatever it is, that if we're seeking and asking the right questions when we see somebody, other than, just saying good morning, or even worse, ignoring them, we can find out what it is that they're looking for waiting at any process, right? Somebody's walking the hallways, is there anything we can help you with? We'll get you to, do they need directions, or are they looking for a certain room, or maybe they don't belong there,
Or maybe they don't belong there. I actually had that happen at the Staybridge not too long ago. I had to escort a group to the elevator because it's a giant square with plenty of opportunities for better signage.
Yes.
So just another opportunity where you're always looking for opportunities to help people find their way. Okay, so then finally, the third guest want that they identified in this Ritz-Carlton research was that they want the person, or they being our guests or customers, they want the person with whom they're dealing with to be nice to them, right? They want that sense of caring, a caring attitude. And in fact, that research really stated that that third desire is greater than the first two combined.
That's interesting. The bringing it back to the niceness was even in our example, the story you just told, right?
Yeah.
You were trying to check in well before check-in time, right? So
Yep.
technically you were not, I don't want to say you were in the wrong, right? But the hotel was in the right to not have a room for you.
Sure.
That wasn't even a failure of standard correctness, but I mean, but it was a failure in not meeting the expectation that you were at least hoping for.
Yes.
I don't want to call it an expectation, but a hope that you had. But in that case, it didn't sound like, at least from what you told me, that they didn't hammer you on well, you're trying to check in early, check-in time's not till 3 or 4 or whatever it is, or any of that. They followed on, ultimately, after you provided the question, some solution focused, let's get her what she needs to accomplish her goal, which in this case is a place for you to change, was the most important thing.
Yeah.
But I think we fall into that when we are right, that it doesn't matter, the guest is still inconvenienced. So it's not always about being right. Sometimes it's more important about being nice, and falling short of a guest's expectation, even if you're following proper protocols, is still falling short of expectations.
Right. I mean, being nice, just showing empathy, putting yourself in the shoes of somebody who may have had a really exhausting day of travel, flight delays, who knows what's happened on their, on the course of getting to the hotel, and just empathizing with that person in that moment where, technically you may be right, the hotel may be right, but sort of erring on the side of niceness, kindness, empathy, compassion. Those types of things go a really long way. And again, we also have endured a lot, probably, that the associate that's been at the front desk has also endured a lot. And so it's difficult to maintain that attitude throughout the day, but, trying to approach every guest, like you said, as as a fresh start. We have to be intentional about it. It's not easy. It's simple, but not easy.
Right.
And I feel like if we're intentional about trying to put on that big smile, right, and offering the most genuine care, and I'll highlight genuine care, right, it does make a difference, I think. It feels like, for a lot of people, especially I think in this season, it feels like a breath of fresh air. Right. And I want the people who pass through the doors of any of our hotels to say that their experience was the best part of their trip. Their experience in our hotel was the best part of their whole family vacation or their business trip. And not just because of the amazing product that we have, right, and all the things that we have to offer in the hotels, not just the DoubleTree cookie, but because they also are saying, man, I don't think I've been treated that nicely in a long time.
Yeah, we may even see that if there was a timeliness issue or a defect-free issue, that, it's too late. This stay has been ruined. But in reality, those opportunities, and we love to call problems opportunities in this industry, but those opportunities truly do provide an opportunity for better service. I mean, I think about our guest who our typical guest who checks in, goes to the room, sleeps, checks out, and nothing happened, right? There was no real opportunity for real service at that point, right?
Right.
They got their key. Maybe they even did a mobile check-in, so they never even saw the desk clerk and got no service.
Yeah.
They got to the room and the room was clean, so they didn't experience anything from there. And then they checked out. So no level of service. But in the same scenario, something went wrong. Guests went up and their mobile key didn't work, right?
Mhm.
Or there was an issue. If we provide a great resolution, fix the problem and with empathy and
Yes.
niceness and
Yes.
genuine caring, that experience with a issue or can actually end up being a better experience than if it was a problem free.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So in the book, he references a ton of different stories, but one that really stood out to me that I think was related to this was this story where, he goes and he talks about how he went to the bank and he was just trying to exchange some money to try and break a 50. And, he's standing in this line and, all he hears is next, right? So, the teller is just yelling next. And he approaches her station and he says, I'd like to change this, get change for this 50. And of course, without a smile or really any words, she takes his money and she does exactly what he asks, right? So in rapid fire, she counts out the change, right? She says 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Next, he takes the handful of money and he walks away. Now, did that bank teller, did they provide a product with no defects?
Yeah, I assume, the money was real money and he got his full 50 and there
No
were real
counterfeit.
bills. Yeah, not ripped up or busted or anything like that.
Right. And was it timely?
I mean, it sounds like it was very timely.
Yeah. Super fast. She definitely progressed through that process very quickly. But did she show any hint of wanting to relate to him as a human being?
Oh no, absolutely. He was just a transaction that she was getting through as quickly as possible.
Exact transaction. That's exactly right. And Schulze, he goes on to write and he talks about how after that experience, now because he is an owner of Ritz Carlton, apparently he has the ability to call on the bank executives after an experience like that. I don't know if we have that same kind of pull, but nonetheless, he had an opportunity the next day to meet with the bank executives. And his first question to them was, what industry are you even in? Surely you're in the service industry. And I'm thinking probably these, the bankers maybe didn't even realize that they are in fact in the service industry, right? Because he's saying, you don't manufacture money. The US Mint manufactures money. All you're doing is handling other people's money. So you are in fact in the service industry. And he sort of goes on to, further into the story, and he makes remarks and he says, when I entered your bank yesterday, I assure you, I did not feel like I was being served.
Yeah, I mean, his example here is a good one, right? Because we do wait in lines all the time.
Yes.
And and in this specific example, it could have just been the smile and the nod, wouldn't have taken any more time. The line would have gone through. Offering further assistance would have taken a few more seconds. But think about when you're waiting in a long line and it's finally your turn, right? The wait has already happened, right?
Yes.
I think about roller coasters, right? You wait in line for a roller coaster for several hours. But what if after waiting in line for several hours, you find out that they are only running half the coaster because they want to get people through the line faster?
Right.
You wait through all that effort of waiting to get less service in the need of being timely. I think our check-in process, right? We get, sometimes it's only 2 people in line, but we feel the need to rush because there's a line at any point. And by the time the customer, or in our case, guest, gets up to us, we rush through that process. Maybe we don't take enough time to explain breakfast and what hours they are. So maybe we don't explain the housekeeping processes correctly, or we miss the opportunity to tell them where the elevator is. So they go on a long journey hoping that Sam's there to find a midway to take them the rest of the way.
Right.
But it's, if we rush through the timeliness or focus so much on the timeliness, then we fail short of even offering not just that smile and the niceness, but we'll end up ruining our processes too by focusing on kindliness.
Yeah, that's a great point. Well, those are all of the three. We went through it pretty quickly, I
Nice.
think. All of the three wishes, right, that the Ritz Carlton group identified as these primary goals or desires for most of our guests and our customers. And so I think, we want to remember that those three primary guest wishes are, right, a product without defect, timeliness, and of course, for the people who serve them, to be nice and to be kind. And, to me, service implies caring, ultimately. And, I don't know who said this quote. I'm sure I read it in a book somewhere, but people may not always remember what you say, but they'll remember how you make them feel.
Yeah, no, I've definitely heard that before. Don't know where it comes from, but that's a good one.
I don't know either. But that's it.
All right, that's it. Well, thank you. Are we just going straight to wrap it up now?
I think we can just wrap it up.
All right. Well, thank you for listening or viewing and listening, whatever you've done. We will see you again on the weekly one.
Yes.
And we'll see you again in a couple weeks.
Correct. Yeah, I think we're going to do a part 2 on this because that book is full of all kinds of great information and things that we can pull from. So I think next week we're going to the next episode on the 15th of July, we'll dig a little bit deeper into Excellence Wins and learn a little bit more from Mr. Schulze.
Well, I look forward to that.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead and let's lean in and get better together.